Before we begin with the panel, I am going to pass over to Aaron, who's going to tell us about Geotab to work.
Thanks, Mark. Let's check the clicker works. Okay, we're in. Hey, everyone. So just before we got started today, I wanted to share a bit of insight from Geotab on how some of our customers have kind of got going with electrification. I think it's quite easy, Mark referenced before, and so did Louise, to say, let's get started, we can have personal car drivers transitioning, but actually in the fleet world, that's where the action's really happening. And it can be quite daunting, we think, for fleet managers to get started. And our aim is to try and help use the insights we've got from some of the largest fleets in the world to get everyone going. So we looked at about 5,000 electric vehicles that we have connected, and we specifically selected those vehicles from fleets that are on the more mature side of their transition. So Geotab as a business are connecting tens of thousands of electric vehicles for our customers, but some of those customers have been on the journey for quite a long time now. So we've got the likes of Milk and More, who started their electrification journey 100 years ago, but in recent years, they've really gone from diesel vehicles into electric and had some success there. So we wanted to focus on those fleets that hopefully have some learnings and some best practices to help people in the room that might be starting on that journey themselves, rather than a long way through and want to avoid some of those learnings. So interestingly, we started to look at how those fleets are charging to give us a bit of insight into how they might have kind of planned what they're doing and what successes they might be having. And really interestingly, most of the charging that's happening across those 5,000 vehicles is happening overnight. So as you'd anticipate, fleets that are successful on that journey have gotten into the detail of planning where their infrastructure is, planning which vehicles they can change, and making sure that when Aaron gets his electric vehicle, he can start charging at night, and we can provide some infrastructure, and he's got a driveway, as opposed to some of the fleets that struggle, where they make maybe a more brash decision and just give everyone an electric vehicle and find out the problems later. What's even more interesting, actually, is that more than a third of the charging that's happening in those customers is happening during the day. And as you can see on the graph there, the grey lines are AC charging, and the blue chunks of those graphs are DC charging, and the hours of the day are along the bottom. And what you start to see during the kind of working hours of the day is that DC charging is increasing. Now, for most fleets, that would be an indication that something's gone wrong. So we've seen plenty of large fleets in the UK order thousands of electric vehicles and roll them out to their customers before later having to backtrack. And some of the problems that they're having there is a sudden rise in, or an unexpected level of DC charging, because maybe Aaron didn't have a driveway or didn't want to use his driveway to charge the vehicle, or maybe there wasn't roadside charging available. And as a result, essentially Aaron's having a breakdown every day, having to stop somewhere to charge unexpectedly in an unplanned way. Now, in the case of our customers, that isn't actually what's happening. So we see here that most of the charging that's happening during the day is in one or two locations. And what that's a good indication of is good planning. So our customers that have had success in this transition have chosen where to place those vehicles, either where they can charge overnight, and it's great, they can get some infrastructure there, maybe they've got depots available and the vehicles dwell at the depot overnight, or where the route that the vehicle's going to take in the day allows some charging to happen. Now, that's quite important, and it's the most common thing that our customers overlook, is actually you can transition some vehicles that need to charge during the day, because actually vehicles dwell all of the time. Maybe that's that there's a particular delivery route that involves some charging, or maybe it's that people need their lunch break and they're working in a job where they have to take an hour every day to rest and recover. Now, what's more interesting than that is what's not going so well in our fleets, or where they could improve, I would say. So most of the charging that's happening across these 5,000 vehicles is happening above 50% state of charge. And that's a clear indication to us, I think, that that range anxiety at least existed 2 or 3 years ago at the start of the procurement cycle, but likely still exists today. And that is proven by the fact that these vehicles aren't being run to the maximum capacity. But that's a great opportunity. So today, across these vehicles, almost all of them, or the vast majority of them, are charging above 50% and never going below that state of charge. And what that presents is a great opportunity, and hopefully a good jumping off point for fleets that haven't started yet. So these vehicles were likely selected with a much greater capacity than was required for the job that they were going to be doing. And as a result, great, they're charging overnight, but they're never actually getting using their full battery. And what this means is you can start to move those vehicles. It's a great opportunity we're working on now with our customers to move a vehicle that might be doing short stop delivery in central London to a different city that's colder, as an example. So the range is decreased dramatically after a few degrees temperature change. So moving a vehicle from London to Scotland, for example, might mean that it's actually the right vehicle for that job. And then that vehicle can be backfilled with a less expensive, smaller vehicle, essentially. So there's a great opportunity there for fleets that have already got electric vehicles to move, and a jumping off point for everybody else to be able to be a bit more confident based on these larger fleets that have been earlier movers being in the right position. So in summary, you won't be surprised to hear me say that we think that being informed and using data is a great place to start, and that using that data over the life of your fleet is the right thing to do and can actually save you a lot of money and make sure you're not leaving money on the table. And now the light's flashing at me, so I'm going to sit down so we can get into the more interesting panel.